You've seen it happen. She laughs with you, nods at the right moments, tells you surface stories about work, friends, and weekend plans. But the second the conversation approaches the edge, where the real mind and emotions live, she disappears behind a polite smile. You feel the door slide shut, not slammed, just gently locked. And you're left standing there, replaying the moment and wondering why you never hear the truth that lives behind her practiced answers. You want the signal every man craves in modern relationships. I trust you with the parts of me I don't show the world. Most men never get it. Not because they're unworthy, because they're using the wrong map of the brain. Here's the urgency. Everything you've been told about getting her to open up is backward. You were taught to share more about yourself first, dump your own secrets to set the tone, or ask deeper questions faster, or make her feel safe with compliments and constant reassurance. That's not safety, that's pressure wearing a mask. The mind reads pressure as danger. The old belief says disclosure creates trust. The truth is colder and cleaner. Trust creates disclosure. Secrets are not exchanged. They are surrendered when the conditions are right. You don't pull truth out. You make it want to walk out on its own. So what actually creates those conditions? Start with the counterintuitive discipline of leaving oxygen in the conversation. Space is not emptiness. Space is signal. A woman's nervous system like yours scans for control. When you fill every silence, you broadcast a need to steer. When you let the pause breathe, you broadcast something rarer. You're not afraid of her mind. Imagine this. You're on a late-night walk after dinner. She mentions she doesn't always get along with her sister, then goes quiet. Most men jump in. Oh, family is complicated, I totally get it, my brother and I. And the moment evaporates. You do the opposite. You keep a soft gaze, slow your exhale, and say nothing for a beat. The pause becomes permission. She feels her own thoughts rising, not your agenda. Then she continues. Not because you pried, because you didn't. Next, you calibrate the temperature, not the topic. People reveal secrets when the emotional climate matches the weight of the memory. That climate is built with pacing, not prying. You regulate your own state first, voice low, tempo steady, curiosity clean. Picture a simple scene. You're both sitting on the floor with coffee back against the couch. You share a light, non-vulnerable observation. I noticed you always look for the exit in new places. Then a gentle question, framed as an invitation rather than a demand. Is that a habit from somewhere? If she shrugs it off, you don't chase. If her eyes linger, you say, we can skip it. Paradox unlocks the brain. The option to walk away lowers the alarm. When the alarm drops, truth steps forward. That's dating psychology most men ignore. Control creates resistance. Choice creates momentum. You also name feelings without labeling the person. The difference is everything. Labels trap, feelings move. The brain prefers motion, a story. You're driving, music low, city lights drifting past. She tells you she hates drama. Instead of nodding and moving on or challenging the cliché, you focus on the emotion beneath it. Sounds like you've carried a lot of other people's storms, you say. Then you stop. No follow-up question, no who, when, how. You just mirror the feeling with clean language. A minute later, she starts talking about the friend who weaponizes guilt, the ex who turned silence into punishment, the childhood weekend she never talks about. You didn't diagnose. You didn't therapize. You noticed an emotion and gave it a place to sit. The human mind opens in rooms where it feels seen, not studied. Now, understand the law of asymmetry. She doesn't need your darkest confession to share hers, but she does need your emotional competence. Competence isn't oversharing. It's signaling that you can hold weight without collapsing or grabbing. Let's say she hints at a betrayal. Many men rush to fix, compare, or moralize. You won't. You stay grounded in your body. Shoulders soft, jaw unlocked, breath slower than hers. That sounds like it changed how you trust, you say. Then you wait. The wait is the work. If she goes deeper, you track her with small anchors. I'm here. Take your time. If she steps back, you respect it and talk about something light. Your mindset is not outcome chasing, it's stewardship. You're building a container where her psyche can test for leaks. When she finds none, she pours more. Finally, you practice non-transactional attention. In a world trained by dopamine, attention is currency, and everyone knows when you're spending it to get something back. You starve that pattern. You ask questions that don't angle toward intimacy points. What does your perfect boring Saturday look like? Which smell is home for you? These sound simple, but they bypass defenses. They light up sensory memory, one of the brain's safest doors. Maybe she tells you about the cinnamon her mother used, the old bookstore where she hid in high school, the habit of counting steps when she's anxious. These are not trivia. They're the keys that map her internal world. When someone feels you cherish their small truths, they begin to offer you heavier ones. Not because you demanded them, but because you earned them. You aren't fishing for secrets. You're cultivating conditions. You aren't tricking the mind. You're regulating the nervous system. The old game was to engineer confession. The real game is to embody calm, clean curiosity. That's how attraction becomes trust, and trust becomes disclosure without force. You think secrets are about words. They're not. They're about risk. Every secret is a test. Can you handle what this will do to the dynamic? She's reading your micro-reactions like subtitles under a movie. Your eyes when she mentions an ex. Your jaw when she hints at family chaos. The twitch in your voice when she confesses a habit you judge in yourself. You imagine she's deciding whether to trust you. Truth. She's observing whether you trust yourself. Confidence isn't just posture, it's emotional posture. The quiet certainty that you can hold pain without flinching. That is rare. That is what the brain recognizes as safety. You don't announce this. You demonstrate it in the little collisions. She runs 5 minutes late. You don't roll your eyes. You recenter and keep presence. She tells a messy story and contradicts herself. You don't jump to gotcha. You let complexity be complex. The mind trusts what it doesn't have to tidy up for. Psychology 101. The nervous system opens around non-judgment faster than around praise. Praise can be performative. Non-judgment is embodied. There's a difference between secrecy and privacy. Secrecy hides because it fears punishment. Privacy holds because it values meaning. You treat her privacy with respect long before she shares anything heavy. When she gives you a small confidence, an odd habit, a petty envy, you don't recycle it for banter later. You don't tease. You lock it away and you never spend it for social currency. Mini story. You're with friends, and someone jokes about people who cry at commercials. You remember she once told you those ads trigger memories. You don't glance at her. You don't make a comment. You shift the topic gracefully. After the ride home, you don't say, "See, I protected you." You just let the silence tell the story. The mind records, "My interior is safe here." Timing matters. Heavy truths don't like fluorescent light and rush schedules. You learn to design moments where the brain can soften. Not contrived, crafted. A night drive with no destination. A slow walk by the water where eye contact isn't a demand. A cooking session where your hands are busy and there's no spotlight. These environments regulate the amygdala. They soothe fight or flight. Communication isn't just words, it's physiological context. You use setting as a tool because attraction and disclosure both ride on state, not just content. You make questions optional by framing them as observations with exits. You seem sharper when the room gets louder. Is that because you had to be? Then you offer the door. We can drop it. That second sentence is the magic. It tells the body, I won't chase. Freedom is the lubricant of deep communication. The paradox of influence: when you relieve someone of duty, they often volunteer their truth. Be careful with empathy that tries to win. Competitive empathy sounds like this. Oh, I totally understand. I've been through worse. Let me tell you. That's not bridging, that's hijacking. You shrink your stories to create room for hers. When you do share, you calibrate. Enough to show you're human, not so much that you center yourself. Example: she hints at a parent with addiction. Instead of unloading your biography, you offer a simple, steady line. I know what it's like to track the room for danger. Then you ask privately, do you want me to listen or help you think? Choice keeps the mind from bracing. Your face is a contract. Most men don't understand the power of micro-affirmations. Not big I'm so sorry theatrics. Those can feel like pity and spike shame. You give microscopic signals. A slow nod, a breath that sinks, eyes that stay soft when the story gets dark. You don't rush to, it's okay, because sometimes it wasn't okay. You let the weight exist without fixing it. The brain recognizes a rare species, a person who will not use pain as a chance to look heroic. Set boundaries early and quietly, not as threats, as clarity. I don't share private things people tell me. If I ever need to get advice, I anonymize or I ask permission. Then live it. The best compliance method for the mind is consistency. When she sees you keep your word in small logistics, showing up on time, keeping plans, texting when you said you would, her nervous system starts updating. This person's promises match their patterns. Attraction increases when uncertainty decreases around core values. Understand the currency of confidentiality. If she shares something significant, you don't reward it with more access to you as if it's a transaction. You reward it with stewardship. That could be as simple as checking in the next day, not to pry, but to anchor. Thinking of you, no need to reply. Low-pressure follow-through rewires the association from confession, aftermath drama, to confession, quiet care. Psychology of habit formation applies here. Pair truth with safety enough times and the mind begins to crave the release. Don't interrogate the timeline of pain. Everyone wants to ask how long ago or are you over it? Those are control questions. They try to box the wild. Instead, you stay with the felt sense. Where do you feel that in your body when you talk about it? If she looks at you like you're strange, you smile and keep it light. But often she'll tell you. Chest, throat, stomach. That single answer moves the conversation from narrative to nervous system, from gossip to healing. You didn't become her therapist. You became a competent witness. Finally, hold a code. No weaponizing. You never use what she shared in an argument, not once. That restraint builds a fortress around both of you. It's the difference between attraction that burns out and intimacy that compounds. Your mindset is not extract secrets. It's be a man whose presence makes secrets feel like they can breathe. When you become that presence, you'll be shocked how the world opens around you, how people bloom when they stop bracing. You're not hacking her mind, you're mastering your presence. Presence is the quiet science of signals. Eye contact that doesn't cling, tone that doesn't spike, pacing that matches the nervous system instead of competing with it. You don't ask hard questions. You create soft landings. Watch what happens when your attention stops trying to penetrate and begins to receive. She'll test it, sometimes unconsciously. She'll drop a small, jagged truth and look away. If you rush to fill the silence, you failed the test. If you hold the moment without freezing, the brain reads a powerful message. No shaming, no rescue mission, no performance. Just steady witness. That's a rare currency in dating psychology. It turns attraction into gravity. You lean into what poets call negative capability. The discipline of remaining with uncertainty without forcing conclusions. In practical communication, that sounds like, I don't know exactly what that felt like for you, but I'm here to get it if you want to tell me. It's humble, and humility is magnetic. The old mindset tries to be impressive. The new mindset tries to be accurate. Accuracy is dignity. Getting her internal world right, or staying curious until you do. The brain rewards accuracy with oxytocin. It pairs attention with safety. That's not theory. You can watch it in real time when her shoulders drop, breath lengthens, and the tempo of her words softens. Use doors instead of drills. A door is a question that needs no defense to open. Doors are simple, sensory, and specific. When you think about that apartment you mentioned, what color is the light in the morning? She answers amber. You ask nothing else. Minutes later, she's telling you why she never slept well there, how the neighbor fights wired her nervous system, why she still flinches when a cabinet slams. You didn't dig. You gave her mind a familiar entry point, the senses, and it walked you to the core. You also let the conversation be non-linear. Secrets rarely arrive in sequence, they spiral. One memory triggers another, which contradicts the first, which makes no sense until the third story lands. Most men try to organize prematurely, you won't. You say, take your time, jump around if it's easier. That statement unhooks performance anxiety. When order isn't required, truth shows up messy and honest. And when it's honest, it's metabolizing, not just narrating. That's the psychological difference between venting and healing. Practice metacommunication, the clean art of talking about how you talk. Before the conversation gets deep, you set a light frame. If anything gets heavy, you can say pause or change, and I'll pivot. I don't measure closeness by how much you disclose. You mean it. When she says pause, you pivot to something ordinary without sulking. 2 minutes later, she comes back on her own. Because she can. Autonomy is the antidote to emotional claustrophobia. You're teaching her nervous system that intimacy here is breathable, not a trap. Don't underestimate play. Play is not the opposite of depth. Play is the nervous system's lubricant for depth. A 5-minute riff about ridiculous childhood snacks can open a door faster than a 5-hour interrogation about trauma. Laughter lowers cortisol and increases connection. Mini story. You're making pancakes at midnight, failing spectacularly, joking about your Michelin star batter. She relaxes. In that looseness, she remembers how her dad used to burn breakfast on purpose to make her laugh after hard weeks. Now the truth arrives wrapped in warmth. The brain stores meaning with emotion. You just pair disclosure with joy. Rupture and repair are your secret advantage. At some point, you will misread something or step on a bruise. Most men panic or defend. You do the rare thing. You name it cleanly and repair. I pushed too fast there. My bad. I want to slow down. Then you actually slow down. Repair teaches her mind the single most important lesson about relationships. Safety isn't the absence of mistakes, it's the presence of repair. That upgrades trust more than a flawless performance ever could. When she does share something heavy, you resist the urge to turn it into a project. Insight is not an invoice. You don't follow up with a checklist or a plan unless she asks. You hold the story, you anchor with one sentence, and you keep the day intact. Thank you for trusting me with that. Then you change the subject to music or dinner, or the sunset leaking through the blinds. That pivot is profound psychology. It tells the body, truth can live in ordinary life. We don't have to enter a hospital every time we reveal a scar. Create rituals that close loops without closing hearts. End a deep night with a simple grounding cue. Tea, a slow stretch, a gentle walk to the door. The brain loves rituals. They signal completion. When endings feel safe, beginnings become easier next time. The habit of safety compounds. This is mindset training. Repetition wires the path of least resistance from secrecy to sharing, from bracing to breathing. There are red flags you quietly avoid. You don't pry into what affects other people's privacy, identities, crimes, medical details, unless she volunteers and it's hers to share. You don't request proof or receipts. You don't cross-examine timelines to satisfy your anxiety. You build your own confidence so you don't make her pain a referendum on your worth. The more sovereignty you hold, the less you need control. And the less you need control, the more truth finds you. You're not learning tricks. You're becoming someone whose presence rewires the association between intimacy and danger. That is the transformation. Not a line, not a tactic. A man who can sit steady with the storm and still spot the blue in the sky. You upgrade your listening from passive to precision. Precision listening means you hear what she didn't intend to reveal and honor it without exploiting it. When she says, "I don't like birthdays," you don't launch a party or start interrogating the past. You clock the pattern. Aversion to celebration might equal self-protection around attention. You simply ask, would you rather keep that day quiet or reshape it? That one question tells the brain, your preferences are data, not obstacles. She feels the difference between a man who wants a performance and a man who wants her reality. Reality breeds trust. Trust unlocks the mind. You bring presence to contradiction. The human brain holds opposing truths like fists: love and resentment, pride and shame, longing and fear. When she tells you she misses someone who hurt her, most men try to simplify it into good or bad. You refuse the false binary. Makes sense that both live in you, you say. The body remembers warmth and warning. No lecture about trauma, no diagnosis parade, just a simple statement that respects complexity. In that moment, the nervous system exhales. The shame of contradiction dissolves. Secrets live where shame hides. When shame loosens, language follows. You cultivate boredom fluency. Boredom terrifies people because it exposes the unperformed self. You make boredom safe. Sit with her in a cafe and say nothing for 4 minutes. Watch pedestrians. Trade 2 sentences. Return to silence. That quiet is not empty. It's a lab for attachment. The brain learns. This connection doesn't need constant stimulation. When stimulation isn't required, performance isn't required. Without performance, the deeper layers become available. Later that night, on a slow call, she mentions the year she disappeared from social media. You don't pounce. You nod into the phone, a gentle Seconds stretch. Then the story arrives, unforced, writing the permission you built in boredom. You use language that respects agency. Agency is the core of healthy attraction and the cornerstone of safe disclosure. Instead of asking, "Why did you stay so long?" you ask, "What kept you there?" Why interrogates, what explores. Why triggers defense, what invites narrative. In communication psychology, that shift might be the difference between a closed door and a hallway full of lights. Example: she talks about leaving a job that made her bitter. You don't ask why she didn't leave sooner. You ask what the job gave her besides a paycheck, identity, stability, a storyline. Now she can admit the uncomfortable truth without feeling judged. Confession loves precision more than pity. You keep your identity anchored outside her stories. If you secretly need to be the rescuer, you'll pressure her to bleed so you can bandage. That's manipulation disguised as care. You audit your motives with brutal honesty. Are you listening to understand or to secure validation? Are you holding silence because it's useful or because it's real? The mind can smell counterfeit. You build self-respect through habits, training, reading, keeping promises to yourself, so you're not hungry for meaning in her pain. Paradoxically, your independence is what makes dependence safe. A stable center draws truth like a magnet. You get artful with interruptions. Most interruptions are control. Yours are containment. When she spirals into self-attack, you gently break the loop. Pause. Can we separate what happened from who you are? You're not minimizing, you're preventing a narrative from becoming an identity. A minute later, you hand the mic back. Continue if you want. That micro-intervention is advanced communication. It shows you can track her emotionally and cognitively. Competence calms the nervous system more than compliments ever could. You remember that texture matters. Secrets aren't just content, they have texture. Rough, sticky, brittle, heavy. You mirror the texture with your pacing. If the memory feels brittle, you speak softly and reduce pressure. If it feels heavy, you ground with the body. Let's put our feet on the floor. If it's sticky, looping, you widen the frame, step outside, feel the air, reorient to the present. What do you see that's green? These are nervous system anchors, not therapy. They're human care, informed by psychology, executed with humility. You know when to switch channels. Words fail sometimes. Offer drawing, notes, voice messages at night, a song that feels like a chapter. One woman will write a paragraph she can't say out loud and slide the phone across the table. Another will send a track at 2 a.m. and type, "This." You accept the format without pushing for more. The brain often needs an indirect route before it risks the direct. Later, the direct arrives on its own. You play the long game with memory. When she shares, you remember specifics and reflect them back, unpredictably but respectfully. Weeks after she mentions the blue mug that calmed her during a rough year, you hand her tea in a blue mug without commentary. When she notices, you shrug. That's not manipulation. That's care converted into design. The brain pairs safety with patterns. Patterns create a home. Homes collect secrets naturally because they stop feeling like secrets. They become stories no longer carrying the weight of hiding. You refuse to moralize coping mechanisms. People survive with tools that later become problems. If she admits to people-pleasing, hyper-independence, or disappearing when overwhelmed, you don't frame it as a flaw. You frame it as a skill that worked until it didn't. That strategy kept you safe, you say. We can thank it and outgrow it. That sentence shifts her relationship with herself from war to reconciliation. When self-attack eases, disclosure increases. You're not her savior. You're the man who helps her mind see itself clearly. You stay alert to power dynamics and handle them with integrity. If you're older, more resourced, more socially savvy, you name the asymmetry with care and remove pressure. If anything ever feels uneven, tell me, I'll adjust. Then you actually adjust, splitting costs, planning around her schedule, slowing your pace. Power handled cleanly creates voluntary closeness. Power handled sloppily creates compliance, which looks like intimacy until it fractures. Your ethics are part of your attraction. When the conversation closes, you leave the door ajar. I appreciate what you trusted me with tonight. Nothing you said changes how I see you. Short. Clean. No promises you can't keep. Then you move back into ordinary life with grace. That cadence, depth, then normalcy teaches the brain that intimacy doesn't eat the day, it enriches it. Over time, the heaviest truths arrive with less fear because they know where they'll land. You are building a sanctuary, not a spotlight. In that sanctuary, her secrets don't perform, they heal. And when healing becomes the habit, the relationship stops being a theater of roles and turns into a home for two real people who can finally breathe. You stop chasing intensity and start cultivating depth. Depth doesn't erupt, it accumulates. So you build a cadence that the brain trusts. Consistent contact, honest boundaries, curiosity that isn't hungry. You don't demand download sessions, you create a rhythm of everyday presence, morning memes, midday check-ins that don't ask for answers. A photo of the sky because you know she likes the way clouds look before rain. Your attention is a habit, not a spotlight. Habits rewire the nervous system faster than speeches. That's psychology in motion. Repeated safety equals relaxed mind equals open communication. Open communication becomes the ground where heavy stories can land without shattering. You let silence be connective tissue, not a threat. Some nights you share a couch, the movie droning, both of you semi-absorbed, and it's perfect. No pressure to perform. When she sighs and says, "It was a long day," you don't grab it as an opening for a campaign. You let the comment be a pebble in a stream. 10 minutes later, she mentions a colleague who crossed a line. You absorb it without adrenaline. That sounds exhausting. Not name them, not "you should quit," just "I hear you." She keeps watching. Then, quietly, she adds the part she didn't plan to. It reminded her of college. That's how the brain releases. Slow, layered, on its own timeline, when it senses that your presence won't escalate the moment into a crisis. You respect the physics of shame. Shame thrives in mirrors that distort. You become a clean mirror, neither magnifying nor minimizing. She confesses something unflattering. Jealousy of a friend, a lie she told to avoid conflict. The way she self-sabotaged a good opportunity. A lesser man would fix, moralize, or turn it into leverage. You hold it steady. That's human, you say. What did you need that you didn't get? The question moves her from punishment to understanding. The mind opens when it senses the path leads to meaning, not sentencing. This is advanced dating psychology. You transform confession from a courtroom to a classroom where compassion and accountability can both breathe. You also become skilled at endings that don't feel like loss. After deep moments, you don't ghost into distance, nor do you fuse into dependence. You do something deceptively simple. You name the chapter and close it gently. Tonight felt real. I'm heading out, but I'm here. Then you go. That clarity counters the old associations. Disclosure followed by chaos, confession followed by cling. The brain learns a new rule set. Truth can coexist with space. Space is not abandonment, it's respect. That lesson upgrades the entire relationship frame, from fear-driven to choice-driven, from control to collaboration. You normalize repair as a lifestyle, not a rare event. You miss a text window. You misread a tone. You get short when you're tired and only realize later. Instead of hoping it slides, you circle back with precision. I missed you earlier. I went into task mode. That's on me. No drag, no shame spiral, no dramatics. Just mature communication and a micro-adjustment. The brain doesn't need perfection. It needs predictability. Predictability is the secret ingredient behind sustainable attraction and real confidence. Once she recognizes that mistakes lead to repair rather than ruin, disclosures multiply because consequences shrink. You learn to keep the ecosystem healthy. Sleep, food, movement. Yes, it sounds basic, but the brain is bioelectric. You can't build a cathedral on a shaky nervous system. You eat well before heavy conversations. You keep caffeine modest at night. You move your body so your mind doesn't carry all the charge. When your physiology is regulated, your listening is more precise, your patience wider, your judgment slower. That's not romance language, but it's romance reality. The best game is a well-tuned organism that can metabolize emotion without flooding. You protect her agency even when it costs you comfort. If she isn't ready to share, you don't push the timeline. If she wants to process with a friend or a therapist first, you bless it. Not because it's convenient, but because it's right. You're not competing with support. You're building a constellation. That's what grown men do in modern relationships. They want the truth to be held well, even if they're not the only container. Ironically, this non-possessive mindset increases closeness. The mind trusts what is not trying to own it. You elevate the conversation from secrets to sovereignty. Secrets matter, but they're not the final prize. The final prize is two people free enough to be fully known and strong enough to hold that knowledge with grace. So when she reveals something dark, you don't stop at the darkness. You ask, what do you want this part of you to experience now? That's not therapy, that's vision. You help the story evolve from survival to authorship. Pain turns into wisdom, and wisdom turns into guidance for how you love each other moving forward. You refuse to keep score. You don't measure intimacy by who shared more or who went first. You measure it by quality, clarity, consent, care. Some weeks you'll unpack a chapter. Some weeks you will. Some weeks no one will. You trust the rhythm because you trust yourselves. The mind loves relationships that don't convert vulnerability into currency. That absence of accounting creates abundance. Abundance creates generosity. Generosity creates a culture where truth can breathe. And when truth can breathe, attraction stops being fragile. It becomes durable, anti-fragile, the kind that grows under stress instead of cracking. You close with a code that doesn't bend. You're here to witness, not to win. To understand, not to undercut. To create a sanctuary where the brain, the mind, the emotions, and the body all feel like they belong. You become the man who can sit with complexity and still choose kindness. The man whose attention doesn't demand a performance. The man whose presence makes secrets feel less like confessions and more like coming home. You used to chase what you wanted to hear. Now you build who you need to be.